The cruise ticket looked like the most generous gift my daughter had ever given me. She smiled, hugged me, and said, "Dad, you've spent your whole life taking care of everyone else. It's finally your turn to enjoy yourself." I believed every word because I wanted to. After losing my wife 3 years earlier, I had forgotten what it felt like to look forward to something. A week on the ocean sounded like the fresh start I desperately needed. If emotional family stories and meaningful life lessons speak to your heart, I'd truly appreciate you subscribing to Behind Dad. And before we continue, I'd like to mention that the images you see during this story are artistic recreations created to help visualize my memories. They are not real photographs from my personal life. The morning I arrived at the port, I felt nervous in the best possible way. Families were laughing, musicians were playing near the terminal, and the giant cruise ship looked like a floating city. I called my daughter, Emily, one last time to thank her. She answered quickly, wished me a wonderful trip, and reminded me to send plenty of pictures. Her cheerful voice made me smile. I had no reason to doubt her. I was only a few steps away from the boarding line when a man in a Navy security jacket quietly walked toward me. He looked around as if he didn't want anyone listening. Then he gently touched my arm and whispered, "Sir, don't board this ship today." His voice wasn't dramatic or loud. It was calm, serious, and strangely sincere. Before I could ask what he meant, he added, "Please trust me. Walk with me for just 5 minutes." My heart started racing. I didn't know this man. I didn't know whether he was trying to help me or scare me. Every instinct told me to ignore him and continue toward the ship. But something in his eyes stopped me. They weren't filled with fear. They were filled with concern. I picked up my suitcase, stepped out of the boarding line, and followed him toward a quiet office near the terminal, completely unaware that those few steps were about to uncover a truth that would change everything I believed about my own family. The man closed the office door behind us and introduced himself as Robert. He wasn't trying to frighten me. He simply asked me to sit down and handed me a bottle of water because he could see my hands were shaking. I looked at him and finally asked the question that had been racing through my mind. "Why did you stop me?" He took a slow breath before answering. "Sir, this isn't about the ship. It's about the person who bought your ticket." For a moment, I couldn't understand what he meant. Then he turned a computer monitor toward me. My name was on the reservation, but another file was attached to it. Robert explained that their security department had flagged the booking because someone had repeatedly contacted the cruise line, asking detailed questions about the travel insurance, emergency compensation, and refund policies if a passenger became seriously ill or died during the trip. Those calls hadn't come from me. They had come from the person who paid for the ticket. My heart sank when Robert quietly spoke my daughter Emily's name. I immediately defended her. I told him there had to be some mistake because my daughter loved me. Robert nodded respectfully and admitted that the calls alone proved nothing. He wasn't accusing her of a crime. He simply believed I deserved to know before boarding because the pattern of questions was unusual enough to trigger an internal review. He even suggested there might be an innocent explanation. Still, doubt had already found its way into my heart. Just then my phone rang. Emily was calling. I stared at the screen for several seconds before answering. She sounded excited and asked if I had boarded yet. Before I could respond, Robert quietly shook his head, signaling me not to reveal where I was. I simply said I was delayed. There was a brief silence on the line. Then, in a voice very different from the one I had heard that morning, Emily whispered, "Dad, please don't tell anyone you missed the ship." Before I could ask why, she hung up. I slowly lowered the phone, and for the first time in my life, I was afraid that the daughter I trusted most might be hiding something I never imagined. For several minutes, I couldn't speak. Emily's last words kept echoing in my mind. "Please don't tell anyone you missed the ship." They didn't sound like the caring daughter who had hugged me goodbye that morning. They sounded like someone carrying a secret too heavy to hide. Robert gently suggested we wait before making any assumptions. He reminded me that fear can make people say strange things. I wanted to believe him, but my heart was already filled with questions that refused to disappear. About an hour later, my phone rang again. This time it was Emily, crying so hard she could barely breathe. She begged me to tell her exactly where I was. I finally admitted I hadn't boarded the ship. There was a long silence. Then she whispered, "Thank God." Those two words caught me completely off guard. I had expected excuses, not relief. She asked if we could meet immediately, because she had something she should have told me before I ever left home. When Emily arrived at the terminal, she looked exhausted. Her eyes were red, and she could barely look at me. The first thing she did was wrap her arms around me and apologize. She confessed that she had been keeping a terrible secret for months. A man claiming to be a financial advisor had convinced her to invest nearly all of her savings in what turned out to be a sophisticated scam. After realizing she had been cheated, she became desperate and ashamed. The scammer later contacted her again, claiming he could recover every dollar if she purchased the cruise package through a company he recommended. Believing she was fixing her mistake, she unknowingly shared personal information about both of us. Robert quietly listened before explaining that the so-called advisor was already under investigation for identity theft and financial fraud. The cruise itself was real, but the criminals had been using customer information for illegal schemes. Emily broke down, blaming herself for putting me in danger without ever intending to. I held her hand, trying to comfort her, when Robert received an urgent phone call. He looked at us and said, "The investigators just arrested someone connected to your daughter's case. And he says there's one more victim your family knows very well." The drive to the investigation office was completely silent. Emily sat beside me crying, repeating that she never meant to put me at risk. I believed her because I could see the guilt written across her face. When we arrived, the lead investigator explained that the man they had arrested had been running investment scams for years. He gained people's trust, stole their savings, and then targeted their family members by collecting personal information. My cruise ticket had never been the real goal. I had simply become another potential victim in a much larger fraud. Then the investigator showed us something that made my heart ache. Hidden among the recovered files was a folder filled with messages Emily had written but never sent to me. In every draft, she apologized for losing her savings and admitted she was terrified I would blame myself for not protecting her. She had bought the cruise ticket because she wanted to give me one happy memory while she quietly searched for a way to fix the disaster she believed she had created. Her mistake wasn't a lack of love. It was trusting the wrong people and carrying her fear alone. I reached across the table and held my daughter's hand. I told her that money can be earned again, but losing each other would have been a tragedy no amount of money could ever repair. Together we worked with the investigators, secured our financial accounts, and helped provide information that protected other families from falling into the same trap. Months later, Emily slowly rebuilt her confidence, and we finally took a different vacation together, one planned honestly, safely, and without secrets between us. Looking back, I realized the man who quietly pulled me aside at the port didn't just save my trip. He saved my life, my trust, and my relationship with my daughter. If this story touched your heart, please share your thoughts in the comments because your experience may help someone avoid a similar scam. Share this story with someone you love because one warning can change a life. Thank you for spending this time with me on Behind Dad. Never let fear keep you silent, because asking for help today can protect the people you love tomorrow.